Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of The Extra Shift. I am Chris here with Brendan. How are we going?
Pretty good, yeah. It's been a little bit since the trade deadline when we last talked, and we're starting to get like tantalizingly close to playoff hockey. It's almost here. But welcome, it's episode 204.
It is episode 204, and before we get into the who wore what jersey, I've introduced this trivia thing, which I'm making Brendan suffer through. And
one day maybe I'll get one.
All right, so today is an interesting one because trying to find individual trivia, I'm working on it really hard, but I'm sort of changing up the way I'm doing it today. So the trivia question today, relating to the number 204, Wayne Gretzky is 18th all-time in power play goals with 204. How many players above him have played for just one team?
Oh gosh, that's a convoluted thing. So all right, so let's remind me of it. So Wayne Gretzky has 204 power play goals.
Yes, and he is
18th all time. 17 players have more than that.
Yep. How many of those above him have played for just one team, and can you name?
Okay. I mean,
it's actually easier than you think.
Yeah, I mean, there isn't a heap of players that have just played for one team.
That's what I figured would help narrow it down a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I know off the top of my head, like, Ovi probably already has more power play goals, right?
Yes, I'll give you that one. Ovi's first.
Yeah, Ovi's obviously.
Ovi's first, and not only is Ovi first, but Ovi is a long way first.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. All right, so Ovi, but I mean, like looking at like other players that are kind of in like a similar time frame and have only played for one team, I'm going to assume Sidney Crosby's in there.
No.
Okay. Is Evgeny Malkin in there?
Malkin's behind him too.
Okay. I figured that they'd be in there, but probably not in that kind of.
One of them is a current player. One of the other two is a current player. Oh, so I've given you three. I'll tell you it's three.
All right. So current players have only played for one team. There can't be a lot of those left.
And they've got to have been someone who's played long enough to score more than 204 power play goals.
Oh gosh. All right.
I like leading off with this. It's fun.
Yeah, I mean, like it's obviously going to be someone almost as old, like someone in their 30s.
I'm more surprised that you haven't got the other one, and that's the biggest hint I can give you.
Oh, okay. I mean, technically, like, power play goals.
You were so close. You were on the right track, and then you went a direction I didn't think you'd go.
Okay. I mean, is in terms of someone who isn't still playing, I'm assuming maybe Mario Lemieux's in there.
Yeah, Mario's third or fourth, I think it was.
Yeah, okay.
And it's significantly more power play goals than Gretzky too, which was surprising.
Yeah. I mean, the ratio was a little bit, Gretzky's assists were like,
So I like there's one more left.
Yeah, I like all those old time stories of people that played fantasy hockey when Gretzky played, and the point where they like actually split him up into two players. You could either draft his goals or his assists.
Yeah, that's a brilliant way to do it.
Yeah. All right. So someone who's still, I'm kicking myself that I can't think of who it is because I'm trying to think of like a goal scorer who is still playing. It's Stamkos, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Well done. We got there eventually.
I know that I'll, as soon as I see the team, I'll know it. And I was looking down the list, like, all right, yeah, okay, that makes sense.
So it's three. There's three players above Gretzky that have only played for one team and have got more than his 204. It's Ovechkin who's first. Then I think Mario was fourth from memory, and then Stamkos is about 15th on the list. They are the three players that have played one team only and have more power play goals than Gretzky. So, yeah, the thing that sort of sparked that for me was while I was looking for the number and I did the search and I'm like, oh, Gretzky will be first for power play goals. No, not even in the ballpark of it. And then I'm like, Ovi is well clear.
Yeah.
Like, it's well clear. And I mean, the other thing is too, remember, Gretzky, and we've talked about this before. What the thing is there is that offsetting minors we've talked about this before. They didn't get power plays. The Oilers took offsetting minors because the idea was then you'd pull one each off the ice and make
and you had more space, and it was an even
more space so
goal.
that Gretzky could go. So that's the reason why Gretzky's only got 204 power play goals, is because they didn't take power plays. Something would happen, and Paul Coffey would go and punch someone in the face, or the other way around. Coffey would punch someone in the face, and then they'd make
and then something would happen, and then they would get more space.
Sure they drag someone with them. So that was the point. The Oilers created space on the ice for Gretzky to run laps around them. So, and because if he scores, you don't get your player back on the ice.
And I don't think he played in that era where, like, you remember that brief period of time where you just like kept the power play just kept running, and like there was weird shit like that where
no, that was, as I said, it was when I thought about it, because I'm like, why isn't Gretzky higher on the power? And I'm like, that's right, they didn't like power plays, they liked offsetting minors. So I thought that was a really, really interesting one.
I imagine that he has an insane amount of power play assists, though. Like,
it's mental. It's to be fair, his assists are mental. Now again, obviously, we also talk about jersey numbers, and obviously number 4 for me, there is only one number 4. You're all expecting me to say something stupid, but no, it's Jean Beliveau. I'm not going to be stupid on that one. I know
not Bobby Orr.
Yeah, I know. No, it's Jean Beliveau. One of them is a really nice was a really nice person that was beloved by everybody. Bobby Orr.
Look, obviously, it's one of those numbers that a bunch of defensemen, wear in like it's weird because. Obviously, it isn't a retired number. There's so many people using it that you probably realistically couldn't at this point. But there's that thing with forwards where they wear a certain number to that's a reference, and then that's a reference of a reference of reference. 4 is kind of the original defenseman number, really. In that
I recommend, and I know that like Red Kelly Leafs fans are screaming at me. What about Red Kelly and all? But I let Kevin Lowe, the Oilers fans. All I will say is again, Jean Beliveau. If you haven't checked out Keith Olbermann's tribute to Jean Beliveau when he died, I highly recommend you. It's on YouTube. It's a really good statement of the man and who he was, and the fact that both sides of Canadian politics tried to get him to be Governor General. Like literally both parties offered him the job.
That's impressive.
Like, we need someone who's absolutely beloved in both Canada and French-speaking Canada, and is loved on all sides of the aisle. And Jean Beliveau was the answer to that question. And that's a hard thing to do, to get the Quebecois and the rest of Canada on the same page. But Beliveau was that sort of person. So anyway, let's move on, because we need to get into some news now.
We're
going to start today. And the collapse of the Newfoundland Growlers in the ECHL, the Leafs affiliate, in the ECHL. Now, the Growlers collapse. I mean, it's really hard to not laugh while you're saying the Growlers collapsed. And, this is unusual. We covered the start of the Growlers on this podcast.
We
covered the debut of their mascot on this podcast, and now we're covering the collapse of this team with 6 games to go, might I add. Like, the season's not over. They collapsed with 6 to go in the ECHL. Now, it's not owned by MLSE for anyone who's about to go, but why didn't the Leafs they don't own them? They're an affiliate, but they're not owned by MLSE. The issue for me seems to be attendance. They didn't have brilliant attendance. But to be fair, Newfoundland doesn't have a massive amount of people. The other issue is that, and I didn't actually know this, they had to subsidise the travel of the other teams to come and play them.
Oh, really? People just don't want to go to Newfoundland.
So, for any team in the ECHL, if you had the Growlers on your schedule, they had to pay the travel costs for you to come and play.
Oh, yeah, that's a tough sell.
So if you're wondering why a team goes bankrupt like this, that's your answer.
I mean, look, travel is obviously a tough thing in some of the minor leagues, because we're not usually talking about like private jets or anything like that. You're just talking about like team buses and things like, it can be a pretty tough schedule for some of these teams playing, 4, sometimes 5 times a week, where they're going, on a bus somewhere, they play a couple of games or whatever, they go on a bus somewhere else or whatever. Like, it's a difficult life.
Yeah, and again, these are, as you said, these are players that are not earning much. In some cases, almost nothing. These are people think about the fact that some of the prospects all get set down to the E first, the big prospects, but the roster is largely made up of journeyman people who are trying to grind out a minor corner of a career in hockey while they're doing something else.
There are very few players who go down the E and come back up and play in the NHL eventually any consistently amount of time.
And especially
Scott Darling was one, kind of that in the last few years that was kind of a big kind of, he played, went down to here and then came back up and stuff, but that's rare.
Yeah, like the list of players that have been sent down, like there are some current Leafs who have been sent down, but like none of the big players. Like it's not anyone massive. It's people who are going to be roster pieces who are playing on that depth lineup. Or and again, Toronto is also a bit unusual in terms of they usually have a really loaded roster on the Mollies too. So that's why they send a lot of those really young players down to the E because there's just no space. Because they've got. Unlike a lot of teams that sort of, they fill that second team up with whoever they can find. The Leafs pay people to just be Marlies for their career. Like Rich Clune, perfect example of you are being paid to be a Marley. You are not coming up. We don't want you anywhere near the team, but you are the Marlies.
Yeah. If you end up on this team, it's something has gone drastically wrong with their injuries.
Everyone's hurt. So. Yeah, and that's the thing. They're rich enough as an organization. They pay people to be a Marley. So that's where
obviously, with the collapse of the Growlers, this is not the Leafs won't become the first NHL team without an ECHL team. There's currently, according to the source that I have here, the Hurricanes, the Coyotes, the Blue Jackets, and the Blues currently don't have.
There's only 28 weirdly, in the ECHL.
Yeah, weirdly, the Hurricanes also don't have an AHL team currently.
No, because they lost theirs.
Yeah, they lost theirs like a year or so back, and they've just kind of been so their players are everywhere. Like that must be a nightmare to get a call up to the Hurricanes. You might be playing over here, you might have some teams here and here and here. It's it's they just kind of loan players to a bunch of teams. It must get a really complicated thing to manage their farm system.
Yeah, that's right, because the Hurricanes had the Wolves.
Yeah,
and then the Wolves, because
so they still have a current a few players loaned to the Wolves, but they're not officially their.
Yeah, they became independent because the Wolves jumped to them a couple of years ago, they weren't.
Yeah,
and then now they're an independent team. So that's an unusual one. Not having the A team is more of a shock than not having the ECHL.
Yeah, that's it.
It's a bit of a different sort of thing. But the players are basically, if they're not tied to, again, they can go anywhere in the ECHL. So that's the ruling that's been made. There's only 6 games to go in the season too. So imagine if you're in the ECHL and you can really do with a sort of a depth roster pickup. You've got this ability now to sign players from the Growlers, and they weren't playing badly. That's the thing. The Growlers are actually doing okay. In terms of performance-wise, the Growlers were fine. It was just
behind the scenes. Yeah, it's unfortunate. I mean, I feel for those players. Hopefully, they end up, getting to complete their season. At least it wasn't a situation like right at the start of the season where they're all gone, and then all of a sudden most of them can't get a job or something like that. I imagine that most of them at least got paid for the majority of their season.
Yeah, I'd suggest so. Now, moving from a team that has collapsed to a team that, if you believe the Canadian market in particular, is burning. The Philadelphia Flyers. And I've got the simple question that I'm going to pose here is John Tortorella burning Philadelphia to the ground? Because the way that the Canadian media is currently carrying on, you would believe that John Tortorella has beaten every member of the team. He told them all that none of them are even worth a damn as a human. He's kicking puppies. He's jumping on the desk and ripping his shirt off and yelling, "I'm the boss now." I
mean, look, we know what to expect from Torts at this point in time. He's never been a chatty guy who wants to have a big talk in press conferences about everything and stuff. It's interesting to mock outrage every time he does something that we fully expect him to do.
He's been more chatty lately than he normally is.
Yeah, it's true.
That's the problem. He's actually talking.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe this is the reason why he doesn't. It's such a weird. Torts is such a weird kind of paradigm of a person, because everyone who talks about him talks about like how he's like, this really great, humanitarian guy. He's really into
Yeah.
this and that, or those kind of things. But he's just not like a personable, person for the media. He doesn't play that kind of media game where you toe the line and you just say that what you want to say. And it's a.
He's got the person. He's got the
Situation.
media perception. He's got the media perception and the team reputation of Mike Keenan, but he's not Mike Keenan, because nobody likes Mike Keenan.
Yeah.
Nobody who's ever played for Mike Keenan likes Mike Keenan. People who play for Tortorella, unless you're a couple of players, like John Tortorella.
Generally, it's not like he's someone that people go like, oh, I don't want to play for that guy or whatever. I'm sure that he's a hard taskmaster at times or whatever, but for the most part, he seems to be liked. Except for when the media can't get the quotes that they want. Like, I think the problem with like hockey media in general, not just the Canadian media, but just hockey media in general, is that there's this kind of expectation that they like turn up to this press conference, they toss like a softball, the coach gives the canned answer that they're expecting back, they put that in their article and they publish it, and that's kind of what they're expecting to happen. And then there's just this people that lose their minds the second that Torts doesn't give them the softball like tap back when they give them the quick like, so what went wrong in today's game? Like,
It's just really interesting the way the media represents Tortorella. And like, me, I'm not the biggest fan of Tortorella, but I think he gets it. I think he gets a bad rap. I genuinely do. Like, what he's done this year with that Philadelphia team is amazing. Like, they should not be anywhere near a playoff berth, not even sniffing one. Now the question is, are they going to choke one away? And it's like, if they happen to get to the playoffs, fantastic. We said this is found money if you are Philadelphia. I think the issue comes from, the Couturier thing was the start. And the Canadian media in particular did not appreciate the Sean Couturier situation and has used that situation as a rod to beat him with.
Yeah.
And since then, so this is the quote today from Brian Hayes on TSN. It was Sean Couturier, the captain's fault at one point. It's been the goaltender's fault multiple times. It's the players' issues. It's softness. It's the second period. It's the media. It's never John Tortorella's issue. It's somebody else's. To which I would say, at what point has he said it's not my fault? At what point are those things that he mentioned not things that he coaches, and therefore he is sort of taking some responsibility on, we've got to fix this stuff? The softness thing besides, and softness is always a cop-out answer when you don't want to give your answer. But the second period, the goaltender's fault, well, it has been, including the fact that, his starting goaltender's possibly never going to play in the league again. Players' issues, there's been a bit of a culture tradition in Philly of the players being a bit of a handful, and it's one of the reasons why they've got John Tortorella there.
Yeah.
To do with that. My personal opinion, as someone who's never really a massive Tortorella fan, this is players whinging to their mates in the media and getting their mates in the media to come out and beat John Tortorella up for a little bit.
Well, I mean, this is, after the, what was it, a month or so back that, when Torts got really upset at one of the media guys because he'd gotten, some tip off from a player or something. And, then he vehemently denied that was the case, and that, that Kevin Hayes or someone had gone and said to someone, don't sign here or something. And, we got a couple of cat cameos today.
Yep.
But yeah, it's, look, I think for the most part, like, the Flyers have just gotten so much more attention because of this stuff and because of their like accidental success. They're having this Stephen Bradbury season where everyone else in the Metro has fallen over, and they're suddenly in pole position, and then like it's kind of started to like fall away. The the little streak of success that they had has started to fall away as a bunch of teams, but probably too late, remember how to play hockey, and somehow the Washington Capitals still stay in the picture despite being a negative 35 goal differential. I just like the Metro is just the most bizarre.
We're gonna get to looking at who's in and who's out, who do we trust, and
yeah,
it's insane.
But like, would anyone give a shit if they were like 10 points out of a wild card spot, which they probably deserve to be for the most part because they've just won a handful of games that they probably shouldn't have. Where no one would give a shit about them.
No, and this is the thing: is that it's mental that there are people beating the ever living crap out of the Flyers for, oh my God, they might choke this up. They shouldn't be there. There is no planet in which that Flyers roster should make the playoffs. So the fact that they are even vaguely this close, they should be dancing in the streets. Now, they won't be, but they should be, because they shouldn't be anywhere close to the playoffs. And what Tortorella's done is a minor miracle. And again, literally, he had his goalie taken away from him halfway through the season. Nope, he's gone. No,
to be fair, not that Carter Hart has been particularly like consistent.
No, but stability
as a goalie anyway. But it's still a challenge. But I mean, that's the kind of thing sometimes that can rally a team, around it and get them on a good 20-game streak or something.
The Couturier thing is I think the flare point here. I don't think there's any doubt that if the Couturier thing doesn't happen, you're probably not dealing with the media beating up.
No, that's true. Yeah, it's interesting the amount of offense the media has taken on behalf of Sean Couturier when they're benching, Cam Atkinson at the same time, they're benching, several other players.
Everyone else took the benching.
But because it's the captain, because it's, this, good Canadian boy that everyone likes in Sean Couturier, who, came back from his injuries and everything. Everyone loves him. His success story. He actually had a really good start to the season. I picked him up in fantasy for a little bit because he was on a little run. And then obviously, like everything else, it kind of just fell away as a mirage.
He regressed back to where you expected him to be.
Yeah, that's and no one really kind of is willing to admit that.
It was like he regressed back, and everyone was like, no, if you'd left him there, he would have been absolutely amazing and he would have continued to be brilliant.
But he played like a bunch of games before they benched him and where he was doing nothing.
So Couturier's points, I don't know if you probably have now looked, but Couturier this season in 70 games has 36 points.
Yeah. I would say that probably a good 20-something of those came in like the first 20 games.
Now, you are paying him. And, people, oh, sorry, no, it matters. You are paying him $7.75 million a year for, in 70 games, 36 points. And to be the captain of the team. No, you're not. You're just not. That's not.
So how many points do you think he had in the last 20 games that he played?
Oh God, it can't be a lot. Is it over 10?
No,
I didn't think it would be 7.
No, lower.
Oh God, lower.
It's lower.
5.
It's 3.
Oh, far out.
3 in his last 20 games.
I'm sorry. I don't like saying these words. John Tortorella is 100% right, folks. John
if you extend it to like 30, it's probably closer to like 7 or 8 points or something. But still not
great.
Good.
That's still to give you an idea in like seasons where he only played 63 games, he got 39 points. He had the 2 seasons back to back where he got 76 and 76, and I think that was where they started setting benchmarks. And then 59 even in 69.
Yeah, so here we go. 16 points in his first 20 games. And then 3 in his last 20 games. Like that shows you the difference.
Like if I'm John Tortorella and I'm looking to, you've got to spark that team up and you've got to make it clear that you expect performance out of everyone. You bench that player. If there's no C on that jersey, you 100% bench that player. And I will guarantee you that he's had conversations with Couturier going, I need more from you.
Yeah.
He will have
I
had
mean, look, maybe it's injuries, maybe it's just the reality of who the player is at this point in time. He's obviously not young anymore, but
you've got to. The thing is, you've got to make the point, and Tortorella's making his point, and then everyone comes out and jumps all over. No, we've got to defend Sean. No, he's not been good.
I don't think that we've heard much from Sean Couturier about this. Like,
no, he said nothing.
Yeah, I mean, like
nothing. He doesn't need to. 3/4 of the Canadian media is doing it for him.
Yeah.
You know, there's an entire podcast that I do not like, that I shall not speak their name, who is just jumping all over this right now and screaming from the roof. Ryan Whitney right now is throwing bottles at people as they walk past. You know, screaming at them about defend Sean Couturier. No, Tortorella's right. So look, we'll come back to Philly in a minute, because they're going to come up when we talk about who do we trust and who do we not trust on the run home. And Philly's interesting. But
yeah,
let's get to what I think most people are here for and interested in. Forget playoffs. The great Jagr bobblehead heist has happened.
Oh yeah, I mean, look, I think that we talked about previously the Jagr like jersey retirement. In association with that, the Penguins ordered 19,000 Jaromir Jagr bobbleheads to be produced in Hong Kong and delivered to. Well, basically, it was going to arrive at like a port in California, in the kind of Los Angeles area, get picked up, brought to the arena, and they were going to give them out. I believe it was in the Penguins versus Sharks game or something like that.
Yeah.
And they found out like in like the couple of days beforehand that like, oh, they didn't get picked up. Basically, soon, I think the day after that, like at the time it was kind of like, oh yeah, it's fine, it'll be all good or whatever. And then the day after that, they basically found out like, oh no, there's been a theft. So someone has come in with false paperwork in a different for a different like fake, you know, courier company or whatever, with a truck, and picked up like the shipment. To be clear, it wasn't just the bobbleheads. It was like an entire like, you know, shipment or something of whatever. But I don't know if these people knew this is what they were getting.
I really hope the bobbleheads were the target.
Yeah,
I want to know.
Once they worked out, this is the thing. Once they worked out where it was, apparently they were in touch. Like they were essentially trying to like ransom the thing, which obviously, you know, they were insured and all that kind of stuff. So it's like, you know, it's a bit silly, but like there's, you know, these anecdotes about them getting like a text that because there was supposed to be like GPS tracking and stuff on them, like you're getting a text that like, you know, they were on the like interstate from like a window that they could see out of, and they were like looking out trying to like see if they could see the truck that had the bobbleheads and all this insane shit. And like props to the Penguins, they turned this into like a PR opportunity. They still had Jaromir Jagr in the country, and they basically told him like what had happened and got him to film these bits, which kind of like blurred the lines a bit between like people thinking like, was this whole thing like a PR stunt? Because it's so ridiculous and so unbelievable that the 19,000 bobbleheads got stolen from a warehouse, but they got like one of the prototype things. They gave it to Jagr, and they got him to like film a video where he's like getting in a truck and going looking for the bobbleheads, and they made all of these like social media posts about it, and people were like, at first were like, no, this is fake. Like where they're
can I just say, I am really glad, if I'm the thieves, that Jagr didn't find me.
Yeah.
Because Jaromir Jagr would have beaten them to a pulp.
Yeah.
Imagine being rounded up and taken to the police station, and you are beaten and bloodied, and for years you have to tell the story that not only did you get busted for theft, but Jaromir Jagr put you in
50-year-old man beat you up,
and then took you to the.
Yeah, so you know, they told like Jagr, like, you've got like 2 lines, here's, you know, sunglasses, here's your bobblehead or whatever to, you know, shoot the thing. And they it's fantastic. Like honestly, like it's probably worked out better for them in the long run. They did eventually get the bobbleheads back. They found them in Ontario, not Ontario, Canada, by the way, Ontario, California. What are you going
to do with 19,000 Jagr bobbleheads?
Yeah, that's the thing. Like I think that they realized that it's the thing too, like, you know, like, yeah, technically it's like a, several $100,000 like investment or whatever to buy all these bobbleheads. But like, unless you're going to be selling them individually, like it's not like you can do anything about it.
And
it's
even
going
if
to
you're
become
selling them
obvious.
individually, like someone's not going to have suspicion aroused once they realise that 19,000 Jagr bobbleheads have hit the market.
Yeah.
And suddenly this bobblehead turns up, and it would have had there would have been some sort of thing commemorating what it was. So it would have been so obvious.
Yeah.
Like,
but either way, they've got them back now. They gave everyone at the game like vouchers to cash them in for a bobblehead later. So I mean, look, you're always going to have a story to tell that with this bobblehead once you get it. That this was a a Jagr retirement bobblehead that got stolen and ended up in a heist, and it's just I don't know, just an incredible story on like what is just one more thing for like a ridiculous season for the Penguins.
So what I absolutely loved was this then prompted an article on The Athletic, which was all about the absolutely insane goings on around the history of the Pittsburgh Penguins. And there are some absolutely superb ones here. Absolutely superb ones here. As a 49er,
I think we've told the story of the Penguin mascot before on this podcast. How they
we've talked about Penguin Pete.
Yeah. Unfortunately, died of pneumonia because it was not an ice penguin.
No, zoo penguins are not ice penguins. One of my favorites, as a 49ers fan, one of my favorites is Eddie DeBartolo Sr., who bought the team and gave it to his son Eddie Jr. As a present. Who obviously owned the Penguins right up until the 91 Cup win, or just after the 91 Cup win was when he sold the team, who famously said, as an investment, a hockey team stinks. And that was when the IRS put the locks on the Civic Centre. But that's also very much an Eddie statement, because the DeBartolos owned basically all of the shopping centres in that whole part of America. That's how they made their money. Was they built the 4 largest shopping centres in the world, all in that one area. So he knew a thing or two about bad investments. Things like trading for the wrong player.
The whole Russian Penguins thing is a whole story in itself.
I love that on the list, like they included the Seagal movie on the list.
Oh yeah, sudden death.
And I love that Tom Barrasso refused to let his name and number be used in the movie because he had standards. But then also the next story is about Barrasso getting in the bar fight at Froggies.
Yeah.
So he had standards, just not that high.
That's not that high.
Steven Seagal in the middle of an arena, no. Bar fight at Froggies.
I mean, look, they're a team that's been, almost bankrupt a few times. It's, obviously the, Flyers fans will like to, taunt the Penguins fans about potentially, being moved, et cetera, et cetera. But, the reality is...
Before someone jumps on me, it's sudden death Seagal, not Seagal, it's Van Damme.
Van Damme, yes, it's Van Damme.
It's Van Damme as the chef.
Yes,
they were interchangeable for a long period of time.
He dresses up in the iceberg costume, but yeah, look, it's just one more insane story on a stack of a franchise of ridiculous results. But look, I know. Look, I kind of actually want one of those Jagr bobbleheads more now that it's been involved in this than I did previously. So this has probably worked out for the best for them.
It's time to hit eBay, folks. I'm sure if they hit eBay, they will go for an absolute fortune.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Now that they've gone through all of this,
people were selling the old ones, like previous Jagr bobbleheads, like trying to pass them off as the real ones while they were.
So
missing.
if you've got the Athletic, get out there and read that article. It's a really fun little read. Now, moving on to an interesting little tidbit that came. I picked this up this morning actually from the Hockey News, and it's a very minor note, but I think it's got massive ramifications potentially. So Jonah Siegel, who is a media specialist in North America, and reported within the Hockey News, it was reported that Rogers is in talks for the remaining 2 years of their contract to ship the Monday night games, including the playoffs, to Amazon in Canada. Now, why I think this is so fascinating is that you will hear people a lot talk about the next TV deal. And there are a lot of people in particular who are talking about this idea that, Sportsnet and TSN TSN should just buy all the rights and Bell will buy all the rights and Rogers are regretting spending that much money. I'm very firmly of the opinion as we get closer and closer and closer, and we saw this with the American deal with ESPN, I am getting more convinced by the day that the next rights holder in Canada is not going to be either of them. They will probably get access to Hockey Night in Canada. They will probably get Saturday nights. But the rest of the schedule is going to end up quite possibly on Amazon. And my rationale behind Amazon is that Amazon have been trying to get into the live sports market. They've been desperately trying to get into the live sports market. We know that Amazon were one of 3 major bidders trying to get the WWE onto Amazon. They ended up going with Netflix for $500 billion because, money. So that's a 10-year deal. That's huge money, obviously. I think that the NHL rights, they're not going to be able to afford these rights in Canada. And it's purely because the ratings are way down because Canadian teams suck. To be blunt. Like, when we talk about why do we get weird stories out of Canada and why does the Canadian market really sort of pick at certain things, they're trying to stir up interest because they haven't had a cup winner since 1992. And if they don't get a Canadian Cup winner soon, the media rights are not going to be worth anywhere near what the NHL would like to get for them from the networks, and the networks can't justify it. Like,
honestly, I feel like eventually this whole thing just, I feel like most fans would be happy with it just everything being available on some kind of streaming service.
Yeah.
Like, how many people are actually tuning in to TV to watch these things anyway? We've probably got a different outlook on this, considering that it's not.
We've always
TV. Yeah, this has always kind of been the case for us. But I think more and more people are just streaming things these days to the point where I just don't. I'm curious how long TV rights is going to continue to actually be a valuable thing for these companies.
The problem is that a lot of these sports have based their market off the TV rights sales.
Yeah.
And, the other big problem is that especially in America, not so much with Canada, in America, there's largely one game in town, right?
Yeah.
If you're talking about a sports network, it's ESPN. And ESPN has undergone massive budgetary cuts under Disney as Disney moves money into the areas that make them billions. And
I think that the NHL has a difficult format in terms of the value of individual games too, because you look at it compared to the NFL, where everyone's tuning into that one game in that week, whereas the NHL, your teams may be playing 4 times, there's a couple of games that are on a time that you can't really watch or whatever. Like it's like, I'm missing tonight's game or whatever, I'll watch tomorrow night. Like it's not individually kind of as big an event as some.
And this is also my argument, and you get this from, and I know that despite listening to them for years, I trash his takes a lot, and I'm going to do it again. This is where Adam Wilde in particular is so wrong, when his argument is just keep expanding the league. You dilute the product to a non-existent point. If you keep expanding and expanding and expanding and expanding and expanding the league, you're going to end up in a situation where none of it's worth anything. Like, if you add 4 more teams, well, where are you going to put them? Okay, is there a market there for a start? Don't just go, we'll make a market, because you won't, right? Where are you going to put those teams?
I just don't know that the answer to how do I make these current 32 teams more interesting is to add 4 more and hope
this is the thing
that makes up the difference. You haven't succeeded with the first 32. Why would 36 work?
If you realistically look at one of the problems, like, I can say this as a Sharks fan, who is watching Columbus versus San Jose on a Thursday night?
Yeah.
Nobody is the answer to that question. Nobody. Right? If you want to make And this is something that baseball's faced a little bit as well too. And like baseball ratings are way under where they are.
Yeah, I mean, because they play 400 fucking games, like.
Right, and that's the point. Same sort of thing with the NHL. 82 game season. Most of those games don't matter. By about a third of the way through the season, you know who 3/4 of the playoff teams are. You're set.
Yeah.
Then the rest of the season is trying to make something out of absolutely nothing. Keith Olbermann, again, second time I mentioned him tonight, and I know that he's since then gone off on his little political sojourns and stuff like that, so people tune him out. But Olbermann, the sportscaster, and Olbermann, the sports guy, gets it. And he talked a lot about one of the problems in the MLB was that there was no cross-play between the National and the American League. And then they went, no, you can play across. So like the All-Star game no longer mattered because, well, they played each other all the time anyway. And then the Baseball World Series wasn't a special game because like it was the one time you could possibly see, for example, a Subway Series, the Mets versus the Yankees, right? You couldn't see that in the regular season. You could only see it if they both made it in the playoffs. So when it happened, it's a big deal. And like contracting in terms of where teams play and who they play might actually do something along those lines, which I know sounds weird. Someone's going to jump on me and go, you can't do that. But if you, for example, just as a crazy spitballing idea, if you split teams between East and West for the season and then maybe go with a tiered playoff system rather than East and West playoffs, then threw everybody in and just did it off seedings, I think people would watch that. And I think people would be far more inclined to watch that if you got a mixed up bag into the playoffs and then you got the regular season sort of contained a little bit because it would mean a lot more, or you limit the number of times you can play.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, look, I'm. It's weird because I don't want to argue it against more hockey. Like, you know, for some fans, I think that's you know, it's great. Like more and more games, but you know, I want to watch, you know, my team every single night, you know, whatever. But like as a product, as a, you know, product to sell to people, yeah, 82 games, even if you're just watching one team, is a lot. And probably there, you know, if you were designing the league from the start now, I'm not sure that would be the way that you would design it. I feel like you would probably design like you know, starting the sport from scratch, you'd have like a 40 game season or something like that, where you play, you know, every team a couple of times, and that's kind of all you need.
And think about what we're about to hit, like the last 10 game stretch. We're inside that last 10 game stretch now. We're going to start seeing teams that have already qualified for the playoffs putting ridiculous lineups out.
Yeah.
Like 10 games worth of ridiculous lineups in some cases. Because the second Toronto has qualified for the Stanley Cup playoffs officially, they're not there yet. They will be, but they're not officially. You can't be out in, right? The second that happens, Austin Matthews will see maybe 2 games because you don't want Matthews injured for the playoffs, right? You are going to see less and less and less of Connor McDavid over the next couple of games because you don't want McDavid injured, because if McDavid gets injured, there go the Oilers, right? We are going to see really good players not play. And they're all
which honestly, like, they probably should do more than they do realistically in the NHL.
But they should do it across the season.
Yeah.
But what happens is everyone grinds and hurts themselves and hurts themselves and hurts themselves.
Yeah, and then people are, you know, hurt for the last few games or whatever.
Then with 2 weeks to go, it suddenly matters.
Yeah.
Like it didn't matter if you got injured in early January. No, you're playing. If you get injured like 2 weeks out from the playoffs, no, sit. You're not well. There's so much wrong there. I think that the Rogers news looking at Amazon, I think it reflects a bit of the future. I don't think that Bell is going to have a bidding war on their hands against Sportsnet and Rogers. I think they're going to have a bidding war on their hands with Amazon, possibly Apple, possibly Netflix, because they've now made it very plain they are into the idea of live sport. Because streaming platforms know that live sport is the guarantee, right? It is an absolute guarantee, live sport over any sort of series. If you can get live sport on your platform, you're set, because you'll get all of those fans will sign up for it.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be intriguing what happens next. I can actually see a future where the AHL ends up on something like Rogers and that they end up doing the AHL games instead. Rogers is not prepared to throw that much money at the NHL again, and I think the NHL knows it. And the fact that 2 years out from the end of the deal, they're talking to Amazon about going, do you want some Monday night games?
Yeah, which is not a great sign for the future of the cap and all that kind of stuff.
No, it's terrible for the cap unless Amazon pays massive money. The other question that's going to come up then is if Amazon gets the streaming rights for Canada, that ESPN deal's still got some time on it. What does that look like? Because Amazon's going to go, well, we really want the North American rights.
Yeah.
And then there's a conversation. And look, it wouldn't surprise me if Amazon actually offered to buy ESPN out of the North American rights. And it wouldn't surprise me if ESPN said yes.
Yeah.
I think they would. I'm sure they would, actually.
Yeah.
So let's go into playoff corner, shall we? So we're going to talk about the playoffs and the battle for the spots. And by the battle for spots, I realistically mean the one wild card in the East. Everything else is done. Like, it's done.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, no one's catching Tampa for the first wild card spot.
Yeah, so
it's really just a matter of who gets in out of all of the floundering teams in the East.
Yeah, like the order's going to be the thing. So I'll just quickly hit the West because people are like, what are you talking about the West? It's going to take a minor miracle for the St. Louis Blues to catch the Kings. Absolute miracle. And I know the Wild could theoretically do it because they've got games in hand, but they've only got one game in hand. It's the Blues are on 84, the Wild are on 79, the Kings are on 87, and they've got a game in hand on the Blues. The Preds are on 90, they've got a game in hand on the Blues. It's done. It's absolutely done. The Preds and the Kings are going to be your two wild cards. The order in the West is just going to be the thing. Does Vegas catch the Oilers? Who gets the President's Trophy? I think the President's Trophy winner is probably sitting in the Metropolitan right now. Just going to put that out there. We'll talk about that in a minute. But
well, I mean, I think probably a big part of the help is the fact that everyone else in the Metro was pretty shit this year.
Yeah, I think the Rangers are likely to end up with the President's Trophy.
Yeah, I think they've probably got a lot of. I don't know what exactly their last remaining 7 games on the schedule look like. But
so this ties in just while we're doing this.
Assuming they have some in-division games, they're probably pretty safe.
Well, this ties in with the question that we got. One of the questions we got from John was about the President's Trophy curse. And he's asking specifically relating to the fact that he's he supports the Avalanche. And I said to him, the Avs are actually kind of, if anything, I think the Avs are a long shot to win it. Simply because, first of all, the Stars are ahead of them in their own division, and Dallas play the Avs. And I think the winner of that game will win the division. But the Avs run is really hard on the way home. The Avs have to play the Golden Knights, the Oilers twice. They've got to play Dallas. They've got the Wild is their easiest game. They play the Wild twice. It's a really hard run in for the Avs. The Rangers, by the way, it's the Devils, the Red Wings, the Habs, the Islanders, the Flyers, the Islanders, the Sens. So basically,
realistically, unless you actually count the Flyers as a playoff team, no playoff teams.
I think the Rangers should be able to handle their business there. I think the Rangers are the most likely team to walk away with the President's Trophy. The Bruins, I don't think the Bruins particularly care.
Yeah.
To be blunt, I don't think they care. They've also got the Hurricanes, the Panthers, the Hurricanes, the Penguins. The Caps and the Sens are an easy finish, but
yeah, that's tricky. That could be tricky. Yeah. Look, speaking of the Penguins, I think there's an interesting little competition of happening between some of the Metro teams for those last couple of spots. And I say the last couple of spots because there's 1 point right now between the Flyers for third in the Metro and the Caps for the second wildcard spot. Yep. So easily that could flip at any particular time. The Penguins play the Caps next. If they beat them, they're a point behind them for that last Metro spot. After winning today and yesterday, they've kind of put themselves actually vaguely back in the picture, but they fucked it up so many times. I'm not going to go on record and say that they're going to make it. I think most likely the scenario is they get again within like a fucking point of making a wild card spot like they did last year, and then fucking lose to the like Blackhawks again in the last game of the season because that's just the kind of season that they're having.
The Caps' big problem is that today's game, like Buffalo's been all over the shop, and Buffalo just decimated them today.
Yeah, the Caps are the most bizarre like team this season.
So the run home for the Caps, just to help people out, is Penguins next, obviously. Hurricanes, Sens, Red Wings, Sabres again, Lightning, Bruins, and they finish with the Flyers.
That could be interesting. Like we could be watching that last Flyers and Caps game to see who makes the playoffs. Like that could be the game. But like they've just had such like this insane like luck of a season to get in. So this information is now like a couple of weeks old. But at the time they were 29th in goal differential at 5-on-5, 24th in goal differential on special teams, 30th in goal differential in overtime, and in a playoff spot at that point in time. They are at that point on March 20th, they were 16, 2, and 9 in 1-goal games, which basically means that they won a bunch of games scratched out a bunch of games by a single goal or in overtime, where the statistically that should bounce kind of roughly even. So they've essentially like gained a shitload of points in games that were a coin flip that could have gone either way, which is evidenced by the fact that they are currently negative 35 in goal differential.
That's the most crazy of all the stats right now, is how far negative they are.
Yeah, like if you look at like they're almost as bad. Like they're not as bad as Ottawa, who are like way down the list. They're almost as bad as the Habs and the Blue Jackets that are like bottom of the league. Like it's kind of nuts. Like if you actually sorted the East by their like points differential or whatever, Detroit and the Penguins are probably in those last two spots rather than the Caps and the Flyers, who are negative 35 and negative 17 on their own.
Speaking of Detroit, the interesting part for the Red Wings, who are very much in the hunt still, the Red Wings have it in their hands, realistically. And I say the Red Wings have it in their hands because they're playing they're playing teams around them who they've got a say in this, right? Yeah. They've got the Caps. They've got the Penguins, right? They've also got the Habs back-to-back in the last 2 games.
Yeah.
So they should win those. It's the Toronto game and the Rangers game and the Sabres. They should beat the Sabres. They should, but who knows, because the Sabres, again, but whatever the Leafs are doing, and again, by that point, the Leafs will probably be resting Matthews, Marner, Nylander, you name it. You might have someone you've never heard of in net, which what else is new, really? That's just their season. So the Rangers game is probably the last one they're going to play one of those teams at absolute full strength.
Yeah, it's interesting because, like, as much as it's a carnival of mediocrity, like any team out of the Flyers, Caps, Red Wings, Islanders, and Penguins could mathematically, at this point in time, if they win more than they lose of the next 7 games, be in that last spot.
Yeah, the fact that the Islanders are even vaguely in that position.
Yeah.
They've got the Blue Jackets, so that should be straightforward. They've got to play the Rangers twice. But that's also balanced out. That's also balanced out though by the Habs. And again, think about what we could have on the last games of the season. Islanders, Penguins.
Right? I think it very much could come down to that last day or two.
That last day, you could end up with all of the teams who are sitting around that wild card being damn near level.
Yeah.
And whatever happens in those games is what's going to put it over the line. Which is where you're going to have the Caps probably screwed, because of the fact that they've got that horrible differential. Like, of those teams, like, it's really interesting. Of those teams, the Red Wings are a +2. The Penguins are a +1. And then Flyers -17, the Caps -35, the Islanders -27.
Yeah, the Islanders are going to lose a lot of tiebreaker on like regulation wins and stuff.
Yeah, this could actually play out quite well for the Penguins and the Red Wings. I'm not.
It would be hilarious to see them fail in. Like,
I'm not prepared to. What could be really funny is if the Penguins fail in and then eventually end up playing the Leafs. That's what everyone wants. Everyone wants Penguins Leafs. That would be golden. I mean, look, at the moment, the good news if you're a Toronto fan is if it stays as it is at the moment, and I don't actually think it will, but if it stays as it is at the moment, good news, Maple Leafs fans. You're not playing Boston. Really good news, fans. You're not playing Tampa. You are, however, going to play the Panthers, the team that knocked you out last year.
That could be fun. That could be fun.
Enjoy that. Will Bobrovsky be Bobrovsky?
Yeah, that's the question.
But the West is more about order, as I said before.
Yeah.
Like the Stars and the Avs and the Canucks, and the Canucks are really tricky because the Canucks realistically are kind of trying to choke the Pacific away. But the good news is that the Oilers haven't been great enough to take full advantage yet.
Yeah.
The Oilers are a weird one. They are, even by, and I cop a lot for talking about how weird I think the Oilers are. But this year, the Oilers are absolutely bizarre. Like, everyone talks about this great charge they've made in the second half of the season to counter that first half of the season. They've still not been brilliant. They've blown away the teams you'd expect them to blow away. But they lost to the Blues yesterday. Like, you shouldn't lose to the Blues. San Jose
didn't they lose to the Blues in the playoffs last year?
Was it the Blues last year? No, wasn't it the Kings?
It might have been, but it is kind of one of those stylistic matchups. I think that just kind of doesn't do.
Well,
great.
this is the thing. So the run home, just to go through the run home for the Oilers, Dallas and the Avs are their first two out of the block. Then they got the Flames, so that should be straightforward. Then they've got the Golden Knights. That'll be interesting because the Knights are trying to run down the Oilers. Then you've got the Coyotes. They should win that. Then they've got the Canucks. That could be fascinating by that point. Then they've got a walkover against San Jose. And let me just say, if it's not a walkover against San Jose, I will be very angry with San Jose because I do not want to get to a point where I have to stop using the Mike Greer meme. And that
it was LA. It was LA that they lost to, by the way.
Yeah. And the Mike Greer meme will only stop being used when the Sharks hit 20 wins. And I have said we are not going to get to a point where I'm going to have to stop it.
It's only three more.
I don't think we're getting 3 more wins out of
in the next 8 games.
So just for the memes, and I know people are going, I don't care. We care about the playoff. No. You can care about this. If I have to cop it, you can cop it. The Sharks.
No one wants to cop it. That's the thing. Like that's the thing that they dread.
The Sharks' run home is winnable, which is terrifying. But the Kings will stomp us into the ground. The Blues again, and hopefully the Blues wake up and don't lose 4-0 like they did last time. The Coyotes, who knows what you're going to get with the Coyotes. We are still planning, by the way, to talk to Leah Merrill from PHNX Sports again to give us a Coyotes wrap-up. The Flames, again, you don't quite know what you're getting with the Flames. The Kraken have been all over the place. The Wild are still a chance mathematically, so you expect them to win. Then the Oilers and then the Flames again. There is a chance they get to 20 wins. But there's also a chance they get curb stomped by some teams because I think they're going to sit a bunch of players. I think if you vaguely look like you're going to be good for San Jose, you're sitting down.
Don't ruin it for us now.
We cannot catch Chicago.
Yeah.
Right. We need to not catch Chicago. We have a game in hand on them. We are currently 7 points down on Chicago. We can't catch them. We're 1-8-1 in our last 10.
Chicago have been winning a bit. I think you'll be safe.
They're 5-5-0.
Yeah.
So are the Coyotes. So look, this is my thing. Like, and San, by the way, just for the differential people out there, San Jose's differential is -133.
That's it's impressive, but I don't think it's any kind of record. Like
we suck.
All right, so the worst last year was the Ducks on -129. So you're getting pretty close.
Yeah, we're 133.
Yeah, so I mean, like you could end up, if you actually, I think you'll probably it would be tough, I think, for you to score 4 more than you give up in the next 8 games. So I think you probably got locked up.
The worst goal differential. Well, we're not going to be the worst goal differential.
No.
Nobody can catch the 74-75 caps.
Yeah, that's
265.
Yeah, I knew it was 200 and something. That's brutal.
Yeah, I knew it was in the 200s. Looked it up. Yeah, 265 is untouchable. That's a bad result. Now, let's move into some awards. Well, first of all, trust issues. So, who do you trust the most in each conference, and who do you trust the least in each conference?
Look, I don't know that there's a team that I'm like really confident in the East right now. Like, no. even though like it's weird to think that a team like the Rangers or the Bruins or the Hurricanes kind of like the class of the East, because I think each of those teams is inherently beatable. Like, I don't think that in any particular night they're any kind of juggernaut. I don't know. Who do you feel like in the East that you actually feel is a strong candidate?
This is the problem. So I'm gonna say the Hurricanes are the team I trust the most.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably who I would go with as well, especially with the additions that they've made recently.
Part of my rationale goes back to one of my pet peeves, and a lot of people have got on me and gone, "Yeah, have you seen the season Artemi Panarin is having?" To which I say, "Wait for the playoffs."
Look, he's finally scoring goals. You've been asking for him to score goals.
I've been asking for him to score. Fantastic, wonderful, brilliant. Does he do it in a playoff series?
That'll be the question. I still don't trust the Rangers.
Yeah, not being a smartass to Rangers fans. I like the Rangers, but my genuine question about the Rangers is Artemi Panarin going to do this in the playoffs? If he does, they'll be hard to beat. But because I think you're going to get prime Igor in the playoffs.
Yeah. I think
Igor, if you've got Igor Shesterkin, you've got Fox, and you've got Panarin playing brilliantly.
Yeah. That helps a lot.
Yeah, but I trust. If you were looking at day to day, who would I trust in the playoffs in the East? I trust the Hurricanes.
I think you're right, especially with the Gensel edition. I think they gave them exactly what they needed. I think that's the team that improved the most in the East in terms of like being a strong team that got better in all the ways that they needed to. So yeah, look, if I had to pick one team in the East that I trust, I would say it's probably the Hurricanes.
My team I don't trust. Now, I'm not going to include all the bubble teams because that's just really tricky to do, and I'm not going to run 15 million options. I'm going to go a bit weird here. I'm going to say the team I trust least in the playoffs in the East is the Boston Bruins. And my rationale behind that is I don't know what the Boston Bruins actually are this year. And they raced out to a big lead, and they just kind of sat. And I don't know if this Bruins team. I know they can play playoff hockey, which is code for beating people up, but I don't know that if they've got a game on the line, like Pasternak can. But I don't know if the team is geared enough for that to happen in the playoffs. And if they get into a tight spot, do they have the horses to get out of it? I don't know. I genuinely don't have an answer to that question.
No, I agree. I think there are plenty of teams that I don't trust in the East. Almost everyone, really. But yeah, in terms of a team that, I'm not convinced by the Bruins coming into the season. I think that they were, it seemed obvious that they were going to take a step away down, and they kind of haven't. And they've kind of been. This isn't really the time of the season that you want to go into a lull. And I think that people are kind of hoping that they just switch it back on as soon as the playoffs start. I'm not convinced that's going to happen.
And even though again, and everyone knows I'm definitely anything but a Leafs hater. But I think one of the funniest outcomes this year would be the Leafs in a season where nobody is trusted in the East sucking and going out in straight sets.
Yeah.
That would be hilarious because this is a season where the East is up for grabs. It's genuinely up for grabs. If you are Toronto and you think you can be that team, this is where I think the deadline could come back to haunt Toronto a little bit. The fact that they sort of tinkered with like nothing pieces and are trusting that Ryan Reeves taking his shirt off and making all sorts of media comments is going to be the thing that gets you over the line. you know, I think, to be honest with you, I think Toronto's net minding situation is shit, and I think they're defensive, especially if they keep running Morgan Riley and Brody together. They're dead in the water because that pairing is terrible, and it just ships goals. But they like it. So look, they're a team much like Tampa that have the ability to score their way through a series.
Yeah.
But for some
reason, look, I think that would be real fun.
Reason,
if it ends up being Florida and Tampa and Toronto again. Like that's
But for some reason, Toronto get to the playoffs and stop scoring.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's the thing. Everyone talks about, and we're not going to talk about Toronto. We're going to move on. But I do want to mention, everyone gets on Toronto about their defense in the playoffs. The problem in the playoffs is they've got goal scorers galore who don't put the puck in the net once the playoffs start.
Yeah.
Where's the goals? Like, Austin Matthews is probably going to score 70 this year.
Yeah. Everyone tightens up the second the playoffs start.
Yeah. In the West, the team I trust the most, and this is really tight because there's two I really trust the most here. It's either Dallas or it's the Avalanche. I think it's the Avs.
Yeah, I think that's true as well. I think that they just kind of edge that out in terms of like experience and in terms of just overall talent, in across their lineup. But yeah, look, again, there's plenty of teams that I don't trust, and I kind of have to point at the Canucks as a we've kind of been saying it all season as this barrage of a team that kind of came out of nowhere and then suddenly had this insane PDO bender. They've kind of come back down to earth a little bit, and I think
it has regressed to the mean.
People are starting to freak out a little bit, kind of going like, "Oh no, what's happened to the Canucks?" And it's like, well, this is probably what they should have been the whole time. They probably shouldn't have been scoring on the amount of like rush shots that they were scoring on, and et cetera, et cetera. But look. That's not to say that they're necessarily a bad team. Like they've clearly taken some strides and are like a solid team at this point in time, but they're probably not the like potential President's Cup, winning President's Trophy winning team that they look like at the start of the season.
They will go as far as Thatcher Demko carries them. That's kind of where I sit. They'll go as far as they get carried by Thatcher Demko.
Yeah.
If he decides that he's going to play like bubble Thatcher Demko in the playoffs.
Well, look, I mean, if Elias Pettersson like recaptures like early season, scoring form and gets back to that again, then that'll probably help a lot. But
and obviously, I have to put out a shout out to my favorite team I don't trust in the playoffs ever. How you going, Edmonton? Good to see you.
Yeah. I think we're on record for that for a long time.
I don't trust them. I've never trusted them. And remember, at this point in time, if the playoffs were to start tomorrow, Vegas versus Edmonton. And I am taking Vegas in that one all day. Simple.
Yeah.
I'm taking Vegas. Vegas will literally just go out there and they'll hit McDavid and they'll hit Draisaitl and they'll hit McDavid and they'll hit Draisaitl. Game over. All right. Quick chat on the awards before we finish off. And I wanted to talk about this because there's been a lot of conversation in the last month about the Hart, and it's changed significantly. So at the start of March, Austin Matthews was in the top 2 in betting for the Hart. Austin Matthews is now 4th and a very distant 4th in the betting for the Hart Trophy. And it is basically Nathan McKinnon, then a little bit of a gap to Nikita Kucherov, then Connor McDavid, then Austin Matthews. Then you've got Hellebuck and a couple of others in the betting because you've got to have extra people.
I think the hard thing is such a tricky one because it's not just a matter of it being like a media kind of thing. Like I think that often the media will kind of pick someone that they're championing at a certain point in time, and I think that will affect, especially betting, which is so based on odds. People will change their bets based on I won't bet for this guy because he's got the media darling or whatever, and I won't get good odds on him because everyone's betting on him or something like that. But it's just so narrative based. Like
it's bizarre. And that's the thing. All of the odds makers, their conversations around the Hart are all, here are the narratives as to why. And it's like, surely this shouldn't be a narrative-driven award. Now, look, I've been perpetually...
Well, it's voted on by the writers, right?
Yeah. I've been perpetually frustrated with the idea that at the start of the year, everyone just goes, well, Connor McDavid wins the award because he's the best player in the league. Because I don't believe that's how you should actually award an MVP, because what's the point of having an award? There's no
The tricky
point.
thing with MVP is often it's like that argument that, like, if every season it would be a goalie then.
Well, the question gets raised, is it valuable to the league, valuable to their team? It's valuable to their team, which realistically means that, for example, Mackenzie Blackwood should be in the running because he's kept the Sharks from like losing every game this year because of his heroics early on. That's a load of shit. I think what we're seeing now is two things. Two things can be true at the same time. Nathan McKinnon probably on the balance deserves it, or if not, he should be the top two.
Yeah.
Nathan McKinnon will probably win it because he's the one player out of the top 4 nominees that hasn't.
Mm.
And that's why you're going to have a McKinnon win. Also, as a bit of a, we're really sorry we gave that one to Taylor Hall.
Yeah. I think it's probably a bit of that. It's a bit of the Drew Doughty, year of like, well, this is the one that he earned because he didn't previously get that other.
And Brent Burns had the same thing. There were years where he earned it and then he got one when he didn't earn it.
Yeah.
But I believe, and we talked about this before the podcast started. We had this chat before the podcast started, and I think we've both got a very similar view. I actually think that Nikita Kucherov probably should win it. Because if you don't have Nikita Kucherov, there's not a chance that Tampa's within anywhere.
Yeah, I think in terms of his value in terms of what he's done for the Lightning to be in the position that they are, I think that's probably true. I feel like there's probably a little bit more help at the moment on the Avs than there is on the Lightning.
I feel like Connor McDavid's potential win is based on the idea, not so much of his value on the ice, but his value in identifying who he would like to coach him.
Yeah.
That feels more like it. We hired Connor's friend to coach, so we should probably give an MVP votes because it's his friend. And look, I don't believe that Matthews should necessarily win the Hart, but I just find it really funny that you're going to have a player probably get to 70 goals.
Yeah.
And not win the Hart. That's hilarious to me. Look, he's going to win the Rocket.
Yeah.
That's a lockdown, and I think he does get to 70. I think you probably see in the next couple of games he goes on an absolute heater because they want to rest him, and they'll basically be saying,
"Yeah, like you've got a few more chances. Let's run you out against
you. If you don't get to this certain point here, we're sitting you anyway."
Yeah, you better get 4 against Arizona.
Yeah, so I think Matthews is going to go on an absolute heater in the next couple. One, to claim the playoff spot officially for Toronto, so they know they're in. 2, to try to make sure they claim a playoffs, the one of the 3 and not the wild card.
Yeah.
Although, question: if you take the psychology out of it, and it doesn't really matter because they've lost to all 3 of the other teams.
Yeah.
If you're Toronto, do you want to play Florida or do you want to play Boston?
Well, I think that
because that's my question.
I'd kind of if I was picking as their coach, or I would probably go with Florida.
So I think I'd play Boston. I really do because I think
it could go badly for either. I mean, as we've seen the case. But if I'm looking at like their lineup, like I don't want to get shut out by that Boston goalie duo.
you paid Ryan Reeves all this money to be a tough guy. You want to prove it? There you go, Boston.
Well, I mean, they're guaranteed to lose if they run out Ryan Reeves in the playoffs.
They're 100% going to run out Ryan Reeves in the playoffs.
Of course,
they're going to run Ryan Reeves, and it's going to be bad.
Yeah, look, I wouldn't be putting any money on Toronto to win.
No,
anything.
I just think. I don't know. Like, I've never seen a team that's so skilled that I just look at and go, it's off. It's just off. You've got, and I'm going to put it out there right now. I think this is possibly Mitch McMahon's last season in Toronto. I just feel like they're going to move a piece. They can't move Tavares. They're not moving Nylander, and they shouldn't. They're definitely not moving Matthews. Mitch has
That could be interesting.
Mitch has not had a brilliant year by his standards, and you kind of get the feeling that the love affair between Mana and Toronto and media and even the front office is gone.
I just think that the reality is, even if it's not a great idea, they've kind of shot all the bullets in their gun apart from like make a huge trade.
If this playoffs run doesn't happen for them, first of all,
they've changed the GM, they've changed the coach.
First of all, Sheldon Keefe gets fired regardless.
Yeah.
Secondly, I think they move Mana and they possibly even move Morgan Riley. I think they're the two moves. And then they try to bring in a goalie because they're blaming goaltending at the moment, even though the problem is just that combo's weird and you spent too much money on players that you shouldn't have spent that much money on. In terms of other awards, just quickly, my only other one I'm going to mention is Vesna. I feel like it's probably going to be Hellebuck unless, as I said, if Thatcher Demko decides to stand on his head for the rest of the season and gets Vancouver to the President's Trophy, then I think it's probably him. But it feels a little bit like it's an award being handed out because somebody needs to win it. I don't think anyone's been particularly outstanding. I'm going to include Connor Hellebuck in that. It just feels like an award where you've got to give it out because you just got to give one out.
Yeah, I think it's tricky too because it's voted on by the general managers. So you kind of got like a different angle to it. And I think that there's certain things that, you know, we always look at as like, you know, they tend to look at these kind of real basic kind of stats of not just like, you know, save percentage and goals against, but also like games played. And a lot of the time I think that the tip of the hand will go to like a workhorse goalie, and probably that's the real shoe-in for Hellebuck in terms of like the workload and the fact that, you know, recently Demko has kind of, you know, been losing starts to I've gone blank. What's his name? The ex-Pittsburgh goalie. Oh God, Casey Smith. And you know, like I think that's probably hurt the chances for that. I would expect that unless he really falters, that Hellebuck is probably got locked up just from the volume perspective and how good he's been with the volume.
See, it's really interesting too because I think Hellebuck is probably going to get it, but if you have a look at the stats, and let's face it, general managers use save percentage, which they should.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But goals against,
they don't use like, you know, any like actual 5-on-5 save percentage. They don't use like, you know, quality.
So Hellebuck's goals against is a 2.43 goals against average with a 919 save percentage. The next closest is actually Joey Decord in Seattle in terms of, I'm talking about people who have played more than like 40 games.
Yeah, but he's also struggled and lost some starts recently.
Yeah, Joey Decord is 2.2 and a 918.
He had an incredible run of like 20 games and then kind of went back to being Joey Decord.
And then you've got Thatcher Demko is on 49 starts, 2.47 and a 916. And like, that's the thing. As I said, if Vancouver get themselves close to the President's Trophy, I don't think it'll happen. I think it'll fall apart. But if they do, that probably means it goes to Thatcher Demko.
Oh, like, I think that the reality is that when they sort that list at the end of the season, those stats will be roughly the same, except Demko will have started 45 games and Hellebuck will have started 60, and they'll give it to Hellebuck. Which is
really funny because, like, if you look at the best save percentage for any goalie in the league, just save percentage off games, is actually in Winnipeg, but it's not him.
Yeah.
Brossois has 925 in 21.
Brossois is always just like a solid backup.
Which possibly suggests, and we talk about this all the time, but it possibly suggests that the Vezina for this year is possibly being awarded to a team with a solid defense.
Look, I think that I would be shocked if you look back at the history of like who won the Vezina in the last like 10, 20 years and you found a goalie who won it who started less than 50 games.
Exactly.
I think that's almost impossible. Just
exactly.
based on the way that they award that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is what will probably rule out the Bruins tandem as well.
Oh, yeah, and that is the thing, because if you actually look at tandems, the Winnipeg tandem has the best save percentage overall. The Boston tandem is exactly identical.
Yeah.
Allmark and Swayman are both a 9-1-6.
Yeah, but they'll be playing 40 ish games each, 45, 40,
It's
whatever.
this is how close they are. Allmark has played 38 games and has a 2.57 with a 9.16. Swayman 41, a 2.56 and a 9.16.
Yeah, which is probably what butchers either of their chances. If one of them played 10 more games, they would probably be in the running.
They are the same goalie.
Yeah.
Like Swayman and Allmark are the same goalie. It's insane what they're doing right now. But as I said, the best tandem, so we give them credit, the best tandem in the league is Winnipeg right now. Hellebuck and Brossoit are by far and away the best in terms of save percentage and goals against. So they're doing quite well. So, and that might do us for this episode. So thank you everybody for joining us. Really appreciate the fact that you've joined us, whether you've joined us live, whether you've joined us on catch up, whether you catch up by listening. Thank you very much as always. We will be back probably right around the start of the playoffs to preview everything. And so we will talk to you all later.